The Wind Waker release is the most ambitious Zelda game to date.
Das ist Linkes. Die Stimme, die kenne ich auch. Das ist Linkes. Auch von 0%. Dies aber zum anderen Game, das gerne auf die Switch kommen darf. Wind Waker darf, ja, wie ich hier gerade lese, Wind Waker darf auch gerne auf die Switch kommen, ja. Die Entwicklung von Wind Waker Speedruns. Ja, es geht über eine halbe Stunde. Bin da mal gespannt. Lass mal gucken. Lass mal gucken.
The Wind Waker release is the most ambitious Zelda game to date. Long before we had Breath of the Wild's sweeping landscapes, an open sea to explore was the peak of innovation. Unlike the previous Zelda games, which felt stiff and hard to control, Wind Waker is smooth, adding in free camera controls, a dynamic combat system, and many other features that players take for granted in the Zelda franchise. It was the longest game in the series to date, with hours upon hours of content. While the game started off as the black sheep of the franchise, a very dedicated fanbase formed. It was these people who put Wind Waker speedrunning on the map, making it one of the most popular speedruns to this day. Wind Waker's history is filled with drama, intense rivalry, and some actual data scientists. This is how the legend
Übrigens, hier gerade.
popular
Moment.
speedruns to this day. Wind Waker's history is filled with drama, intense rivalry.
Die beiden. Links ist Linkers. Also, Linkers 7. Also, der das Video gerade. Der Sprecher vom Video gerade ist. Rechts ist Gymnast. Der das Video vorher erklärt hat.
And some actual data scientists. This is how The Legend of Zelda, The Wind Waker, was beaten in under an hour.
Genau, Tobi.
I'm sure many of you are familiar with speedrunning. Play the game with a timer, record your gameplay, and submit it to speedrun.com. It's an extremely simple process, made even easier with robust practice tools, Discord servers, and tutorials. However, it wasn't always like this. Imagine you're in 2005. You don't have an iPhone, you probably don't even have a laptop. This is a much simpler time, where online communication was scarce, and the only way to submit a speedrun was to send in a VHS tape to Speed Demo's archive. This is where the first recorded world record of The Wind Waker was achieved. On January 30th, 2005, Marshmallow, an accomplished speedrunner at the time, took his talents to the Legend of Zelda franchise in completing Wind Waker in 7 hours, 8 minutes, and 32 seconds. This run was essentially a casual playthrough of the route, but there was a lot of creative optimizations that we still use to this day. From here, each record followed a very similar philosophy: low optimization with whatever knowledge of the game that could be found on the forums and early video game sharing websites. But pretty soon, all of that was about to change. And
Übrigens, ich mag, in welchem Tempo Linkes und Gymnast reden. Das ist dann wenigstens Englisch, was ich verstehen kann. Und nicht so wie andere, die, keine Ahnung, wie schnell reden. Da verstehe ich dann kaum, was sie sagen. Das ist halt nicht gut in Englisch. Am besten nuscheln ist Englisch, ja. Ja, also ich verstehe den gut. Im gleichen Atemzug sagt Link ist dann immer, Englisch spricht er ohne zu denken. Ja. Okay. Sobald er Schwedisch seine Muttersprache sprechen will, muss er denken, was das Wort nochmal war. Aber er spricht doch so schlecht Englisch. Also ich verstehe den gut. Genauso wie Gymnast vorhin. Ja, Small ist genauso, ja.
First person to try and change this meta and finally implement some cool glitches was a runner by the name of Giano. And this would all come to play on January 4th, 2012, when he would set his first record with a time of 6 hours, 16 minutes, and 29 seconds. On the 4th of January, 2012, implementing time saves like infinite soup glitch and even some small mini-boss skips. He also implemented a major glitch known as zombie hovering. This trick allows speedrunners to gain height infinitely by mashing the B button. This
Ich liebe sowas. Ich liebe sowas. Da kannst du ja wirklich bis ins Endliche hochsteigen. Ich mag sowas.
to gain height infinitely by mashing the B button. This works because there's a few frames where Link can perform an input right before the death animation starts. By jump slashing during this time
Tipo with a glitch.
and continuously pressing the B button, you will create a cycle of jump slashing in midair. And the longer and faster you mash, the more height will be gained. The
Oh
one drawback
lol.
being that the moment Link touches the ground, he'll die. And that's where this thing comes into play. The Tingle Tuner was Nintendo's way of integrating GameCube games with the new
Warte. Das war ein Game Boy Advance. Nice. Finde ich cool. Single Tuner.
Tuner was Nintendo's way
Nicht
of
cool.
integrating GameCube games with the new Game Boy Advance. If you had the handheld and a special link cable, using this item would allow players to buy in-game items, unlock secrets, and in this case, survive a zombie hover. But because of this,
Wait. Ist das praktisch ein Cheat-Modul? Das sah mir aus wie ein Cheat-Modul, praktisch.
two categories emerged. One that used the Tingle Tuner and one that didn't. For the sake of the video, we'll only be looking at the faster category. While Giano's run was impressive for its time, he only did 2 runs. So his largest contribution to the Wind Waker might not actually be from his own gameplay, but rather who he inspired to pick up the game next, Narcissa Wright. These days, Narcissa is an extremely controversial figure. However, her story is intertwined with this game. By 2012, Narcissa was one of the biggest streamers on Twitch and provided the game with a huge audience. Think of how Minecraft or Super Mario Odyssey is seen today. She was the first Zelda speedrunner to solely care about optimization, regardless of how hard a trick.
Das kriegt man wahrscheinlich so gar nicht mit. Aber der macht übelst den Zittrigen am Controller, um zu mashen. Ich glaube, das sieht man von so gar nicht, aber der ist übelst schnell am Klicken.
Is seen today. She was the first Zelda speedrunner to solely care about
Alter.
optimization, regardless of how hard a trick was. This was
Junge.
when she started going for Cabana Deed Skip. At the tail end of the game, Link needs to collect 8 shards of the Triforce that are buried deep in the ocean. To do this, the player needs to collect shards that point to the location of each one of these pieces. One of these pieces reside right here in the private oasis. Normally, you can only enter the cabana after collecting 21 joy pendants and turning them into Miss Marie at Windfall Island. It's one of the many lengthy side quests that are required to beat the game. This can be skipped, however, using a glitch known as forest water storage. The water in Forest Haven has a special property that disappears after 20 minutes. The water itself isn't really important, but the text box that shows up informing the player that their 20 minutes is up is very important. By pulling out the Wind Waker on the same frame that this text box shows up, you're able to play while the game thinks you're in a cutscene. Being in this state allows you to store the properties of different cutscenes. For example, opening a chest has this cool animation, but how they got it to work is pretty janky. Link is actually too big to fit in a chest like this, so all of his collision becomes really tiny. With storage, Narcissa kept this tiny hitbox and used it to slide into the gap in this door, saving the most amount of time implemented by a single trick. Setting a brand new world record of 5 hours, 56 minutes, and 34 seconds. And a new era of Wind Waker had begun, the storage era. And Narcissa took this run seriously. She achieved the first sub 6 hour run despite the previous record being 6 hours and 3 minutes having been performed in the Japanese version of the game, which saved 13 minutes over the English version that she was using due to faster text. Around this time in the speedrun community, people started to take it very seriously. You saw many communities switch languages and even buy specific revisions of games just to be able to save time, no matter the cost. And Narcissa was no different and rushed out to buy a Japanese version of the game. With the Japanese version in hand and implementing a few more small optimizations, the first sub 5 hour run was achieved on August 24th, 2012. However, there would soon be an even bigger time save on the horizon. 2 years prior to this, on June 22nd, 2010, a glitch hunter named Clydestorm was investigating the forest water storage glitch when it was initially discovered. He found that after activating this glitch and pulling out the Wind Waker again, it would lock the camera in front of Link, just like if he was using the Wind Waker. But he was able to keep control of the character. And after jumping into the water and holding up an analog stick, Link began to spin around erratically, gaining speed and eventually just shooting off from the island. This happened because of a...
Warte mal. Ich kenne das mit dem Wasser und das Sprint aufbauen, kenne ich nur, irgendwie, wenn man die ganze Zeit nur, ja, pausiert immer wieder. Dass er so den Speed aufbaut. So kenne ich das.
built up speed in the negatives. This is a very common oversight by developers in many games. I'm sure most of you have heard of the famous BLJ glitch in Mario 64, and this takes advantage of the same oversight.
Das Pausieren ist buffert. Ohne Pausieren ist buffert ist. Ah, okay. Erklärt er aber noch. Okay.
So you could theoretically use this glitch to travel in between every island and cutting out every single sailing section. There is just one problem, however. Forest water storage, while useful, is inherently limited. It's a frame-perfect trick that is only accessible every 20 minutes and can only be used once at a time. If you fail it, get ready to pack up your bags and head back to Forest Haven to get some more, and then wait another 20 minutes. Even though at least 30 minutes could have been saved by super swimming to every island, it just wasn't viable yet. At least until Narcissa received a strange message on September 3rd, 2012.
Wind Waker Super Swim without forest water or tools? I was trying to do the Wind Waker dive into Forest Haven earlier, and I somehow got camera lock / super swim as a result of one of my failed attempts. I couldn't find anything like this on ZSR or otherwise, so I thought I'd ask around. Anyways, I was trying it on the ledge to the right of where you start, the one near the Deku Babas, but I was trying to do it way too far to the left, near the vertex where that ledge and perpendicular ledge meet. Link slid off the ledge like in a normal dive, but he immediately put the Wind Waker away, leaving me with camera lock like when using storage. I've been trying to replicate it for hours now, but am failing because I suck ass at this game. I'll put up a video if I actually figure it out, though.
Generally,
Irgendwie bin ich mit dem Wort Storage immer so irritiert. Ist das dann wirklich so ein Lagersystem? Womit sich das dann immer stackt? Jein. Game Memory. Ah, okay. Das ist Spielspeicher. Alles klar.
Claims like this usually gets brushed aside as fans seeking attention, but this claim was certainly plausible. Aha Bob and glitches and stuff figured out what had happened. Players had known for a while that there was a glitch you can perform known as a Wind Waker dive, which can be done by pulling out the Wind Waker right as Geometry pushes Link off. This trick was already used in speedruns to dive deep underwater, to swim through islands for small time saves, such as in Forest Haven. However, if you hit the B button 3 frames before you land, Link is put in the same storage state that you got from Forest Water. This glitch essentially made storage viable anywhere in the game where you could use the Wind Waker. With this new glitch, dubbed dry storage, the game became incredibly broken, with time saves in nearly every single segment. Storage could be used to climb walls, skip small cutscenes, and most importantly, super swim. At this point, Narcissa had become the speedrunner, as synonymous with the Wind Waker, just like Siglenny was with Super Mario 64. Soon though, her first serious challenger.
Das ist übrigens gerade nicht irgendwie fast forward oder Video editiert vorgespult. Das ist echt Geschwindigkeit.
Approached. On September 9th, 2012, Demon got a time of 4 hours, 58 minutes, and 2 seconds, completing the first ever run to use both dry storage and super swimming. It was rough around the edges, only 50 seconds faster than Assist's previous run, despite all the new potential time saves on the table. Still.
Weil es halt Informationen im Spiel, ruf sie ab, wenn du die brauchst. Ah, alles klar. Okay. Demon? Also ich kenne einen Demon, der macht auch Zelda-Spiele. Aber ich weiß jetzt nicht, ob der Speedrun. Spannend, ob er nochmal für 100% Weltrekordjagd geht, der ihm vor 7 Monaten gemobst wurde. Ist der Demon der Speedruns. Okay, alles klar. Der hat, glaube ich, auch jetzt einen Rebirth gespielt gehabt, habe ich gesehen.
It was the start of something special. The competition between these two runners defined what is to come in the story of this game. The Wind Waker gained a reputation for a game where big time saves are rarely found. But despite this, the times kept going down, fueled by competition spirits of these two titans. 446 in October, 440 in November, 437 in January, and then 434 in June of 2013. More than 20 minutes were saved
Wow.
without any new major time saves, until Demon figured out a route that could optimize the game even further. You see, up until now, the use of storage in this route was mostly a scene to skip sailing sequences, skip certain side quests, small keys, or even boss key skips. But the route mostly stayed the same. Well, that was at least until now. People theorized for a long time that by attaining the bombs early, you could absolutely destroy the second dungeon in this game. Unfortunately, the only way to obtain
Gab's da so viele Theorien, wie man das besser machen konnte? Ah.
the bombs was to go to Great Fish Island to activate an event known as Endless Night. It would cause the pirate ship to spawn on Windfall Island, where you could finally obtain the bombs. So why were runners not doing this if it was known? Well, this island is normally inaccessible until you beat in the second dungeon, and trying to sail there will simply activate a text prompt where King Red Lion forces you to turn around. And if you super swim there, the game would simply soft lock you. But what was figured out was that if you were to do a very precise super swim towards this island, there is a few seconds of a window where the island's collision starts to load in, but the game hasn't had enough time to load everything, which includes the cutscene. So, if you were to perfectly navigate the island, get onto the island at this very short window, and then cancel out of the storage glitch right before the cutscene had time to load, the cutscene would play like normal.
Ja, wie klein der Controller einfach rechts zu den Händen ist, ja.
This short description of how to do this trick does not do it justice. It was an extremely difficult trick, but it was doable. Dry storage and super swimming unlocked so many routing possibilities that were only theoretical up until now. And shortly after this, runners started using the bombs early route, and the records started dropping fast. And all of this came together on September 12th, 2013, when Narcissa finished a run of 4 hours, 27 minutes, and 53 seconds. Her very last run of Wind Waker. But with all of these new time saves, Demon was soon able to catch up to Narcissa.
You don't. Alright.
Das ist ein großer Timesave. Heilige.
And with the biggest competition gone, Demon found no real reason to keep going, so he ended up moving on to other speedruns. And although the best players in the game's history were gone at this point, something very interesting happened. If you ask me, the most significant run of Wind Waker was not any of the times that we've mentioned so far. It wasn't a world record. It wasn't even a personal best. Instead, it was a marathon run done earlier that year.
Oh, warte mal.
Awesome Games.
Den einen kannte ich auch. Hier, das ist, Spike Vegeta heißt er, glaube ich, der in der Mitte.
A marathon run done earlier that year at Awesome Games Done Quick 2013. There, the biggest speedrun streamer in the world, Narcissa that is, completed a run of 4 hours, 44 minutes, and 40 seconds. No world record, but this run is iconic, positively and negatively. It was the subject of memes.
Den kenne ich auch nur so ab und zu. So wie ich gucken tue ich ihn nicht, weil der ist mir viel zu laut.
Lengthy forum post, but more importantly, it inspired many new speedrunners to pick up the game. Games Done Quick has been a staple of speedrunning, and
Ja. Mein Mund war wieder schneller als mein Gehirn. Okay.
HGDQ 2013 is a big reason for that. It sparked a huge explosion in popularity that would change the speedrunning community at large. After this run, loads of new faces started to run the game, and by December, they were getting real good. Chase, SVA, Linkus, Koja, and Gymnast86, among many other runners, started to
Wie ist das dann eigentlich in dem Moment, sich nicht selbst zu nennen? Also sagen ich, sondern Linkus zu sagen. Mhm. Kann ich mir irgendwie schwierig vorstellen. Dass das doch nicht rausrutscht. Statt, ja, ich oder meine Wenigkeit eben den Namen zu sagen. Ah, okay. Okay. Der ist geübt drin. Ah, ist klar.
slowly emerge and all started improving rapidly. The first to beat Demon, however, was Kolja, a German speedrunner who took advantage of a brand new Triforce quest route that had just been developed. And on April 6th, 2014, he became the first runner other than Demon or Narcissa to hold the world record in nearly 3 years. But it wouldn't last too long, because after a while, Gymnast86 set a brand new world record as well. But that also wouldn't last.
Hat er wirklich einen Rekord von 420? Oh, wow. Wow.
Because armed with a brand new early game route, another runner, SVA, set his own record of a time of 4 hours, 13 minutes, and 7 seconds. Demon had some serious competition again. Every time he stepped away from the game, a new contender would pop up to challenge him. Well, challenge him might not be 100% accurate. When a fly comes into your room, it certainly distracts you, but it doesn't threaten you. And the same was true for Demon. He would always take back the world record very easily. At least, that was until December 8th, 2014. Chaotic Ace picked up the game around June of 2014, but he improved very quickly. His first few runs on the English versions were faster than most people had their times on the Japanese one. So once he made the switch over to Japanese, it was clear that he was the only other runner on Demon's level. The two would trade records throughout 2014, and when 2015 came around, they were shaping up for a race which would go down in the history books. Who could be the first person to break the 3-hour barrier? Ace was almost like a second Demon. They both stood out from the crowd as extremely talented runners who would always find a time save right when they needed it. And this competition sparked new strats throughout the entire game by both tweaking and modernizing the game to squeeze out just every single second possible. 408 in January, 406 in February, 405 in March, 403
Wie sie sich immer überbieten.
402 in June, 401 in August, and then he did it. A clean early game, nailing every extremely precise trick, 2 gold splits during the Triforce hunt, and all of that put the run on track for the first ever sub 4-hour run in Wind Waker.
Er hat sich 5-mal selbst überholt.
2015, Demon will be the one to do it.
It is done. Rip control.
Sub 4 Hour, ey.
It is done.
Krass.
It's done. It's done. It's done. I can't believe it. I got sub 4 with this run.
Alter.
Yes.
Ace definitely got close a couple of times, but Demon's consistency is what got him there first. Demon will go on a long break after this, which opened up the door for Ace to finally have a chance to beat his time. It would be fair to assume that Ace, similarly to Demon, would also take a break when the competition was gone. He didn't. Ace continued playing the game as the only top runner for over 6 months, getting the record all the way down to 3 hours, 55 minutes, and 44 seconds before he finally decided to take a break, squeezing another 5 minutes off of this run by pure optimization. He had pushed the game to its breaking point, and there wasn't anything else to optimize, nothing else to tweak, nothing else to route. Of course, there was that trick, that one trick that everyone knew of, but no one would be crazy enough to do it, right? You see, the worst part of Wind Waker speedrunning is that the beginning of the game is extremely tedious. This is because the Wind Waker is such an important item for doing tricks in this game. But before you can even get the Wind Waker, runners have to sit through a 5-minute intro cutscene, they grab the tunic, then they acquire a sword and shield to save Tetra, they play the platform minigame to get the spoils bag, they sneak through Forsaken Fortress, then grind more rupees to buy the sail, before finally making it to Dragon Roost Island. Run, where King of Red Lions will give you the Wind Waker. This starting sequence is brutal, but it has been theoretically possible to skip for quite some time now. You see, only a year after forest water storage was discovered, Clydestorm realized just how useful super swimming would be if you didn't have the limitation of storage. The reason super swimming even works in the first place with storage is because storage forces Link to always face the camera, allowing you to turn around every single frame. However, Clyde discovered that you could actually do this manually by flicking the analog stick in the opposite direction every single frame, 30 times a second. At this point, it was considered TAS only, but only 2 years after Ace's world record,
wieder
it
TAS.
was seemingly the only thing left to do to save time. And Demon decided to abuse pausing in order to get this trick, making it much easier to hold a direction for only one frame. Even though it made the trick easier, it was not easy by any stretch of the imagination. It required over 150 frame-perfect pauses in order to get the desired speed. But Demon eventually was able to achieve a time of 3 hours, 48 minutes, and 17 seconds by using this trick, a 7-minute world record. And this time was basically unbeatable. While you had a few runners trying to catch up to Ace, manual Super Swim practically killed the game. No one wanted to do it, regardless of how fast of a time they could get with it. And it wasn't possible to beat the world record without it. The Wind Waker community was effectively dead at this point. Runners would crop up here and there, do a couple of runs, and then just lose interest. The run was both too long and too difficult for anyone to take the game seriously. 2019 would see huge optimizations as well in other Zelda games, and it was common to see people flock to those new tricks.
Wait, what? Was passiert denn hier jetzt gerade?
The game seriously. 2019 would see huge optimizations.
Was ist das denn?
Zelda games. And it was
Er will den Typ woanders spawnen lassen?
Ocarina of Time and Majora's Mask both got SRM. Skyward Sword got RBM, and Breath of the Wild basically was getting a glitch every week. But on June 27th, 2019, it would finally be Wind Waker's turn again to go back into the spotlight. In enters the age of barrier skip. Halfway through the run, Link discovers the sunken kingdom of Hyrule.
Barrier skip?
Around the castle is this colossal barrier. Nintendo put this here to make it impossible to reach Ganon's castle early. Or so they thought at least. You see, each time the run kept getting more optimized, players kept looking at this barrier, thinking that it could save nearly 2 hours if they were able to get past it. But it wasn't so simple as to just skip it. It's important to understand that this barrier isn't simply a wall. This is basically the best defense system in video game history, intended to destroy any effort of trying to get into Ganon's tower early. And it mainly consists of 2 parts, an invisible knockback zone and an invisible wall behind it. Both of these, however, extend incredibly high, to where even if you were to use a moon jump cheat code, it takes ages just to clear it on its height. Finding a way to skip this barrier is one of the most famous glitch hunting stories in speedrunning history. On June 27th, 2019, R3D posted a picture...
Moment. Von was wurde da gerade gehittet?
In speedrunning history. On June 27th...
Was hittet ihn da?
In speedrunning history. On June
Ich hab keine Ahnung.
27th,
Irgendwas auf jeden Fall.
2019, R3D posted a picture in the Discord of Link with an arrow stuck to his hand. Not only was this glitch soon replicated, but it was found that these arrows actually took up space in the game's memory. Just like how your computer can only handle so many Chrome tabs being loaded at once, so does Wind Waker. Each arrow does take up space, and the more arrows you load into the game, the more the game's memory is filled up. And fill up too much of that memory, and the game would simply crash. However, a really clever user by the name of Dragon...
Wenn Link schwimmt, hat er eigentlich eine Anzeige, wie lange er schwimmen kann, bevor er langsam Leben verliert oder ertrinkt. Ah, okay. Okay. Da er unter Wasser ist und Moonjumpt, wird nicht angezeigt. Wäre für mich die Erklärung zum Schaden. Ja, macht Sinn. Macht Sinn.
Dragonbane quickly figured out...
Wobei, er wurde da wirklich von was gehittet. Da war irgendwas Schwarzes vorher. Da kam irgendwas Schwarzes an und hat ihn gehittet. Nur konnte ich jetzt den Frame nicht finden. Von was? Oder das Schwarze war irgendwas vom Boden oder so. Weiß ich nicht.
Out that this method could actually be used to unload the barrier. Through an extremely complicated sequence of events, it allowed runners to save nearly 2 hours compared to the previous runs. And so, we entered a brand new era of speedrunning this game. And Gymnast was the first person to take advantage of this new finding, finishing off a run in 3 hours, 29 minutes, and 10 seconds.
3:29:10. The Wind Waker has been completed with barrier skip.
Now, as you can see from his reaction, he was very excited about this run. Now, yeah, it wasn't a perfect run by any stretch of the imagination, but I think it's still important to mention this run because it was the first run that was completed with barrier skip. But this was just the start, and things would get a lot more streamlined after this. And the record started to drop fast. 2 hours on July 15th.
I didn't get the option to jump on his head.
And an hour and 48 minutes on July 21st. And these time
Was?
saves being found every day.
Oh,
And the time would only get faster from
wow.
here. While the novelty of the new turn
Hey, ja,
was-
Hallo Saki. Ich grüße dich. Ein wunderschönen wünsche ich dir. Erschreck dich nicht, ich habe extra angeklopft.
was wearing off pretty quickly, Demon and myself decided to take the route to
Ich liebe es.
And to give you an idea of just how precise the speedrun ended up getting, if you accidentally stepped onto an island, the water droplets and Link's footsteps on the beach would cause further memory corruption, which could mess up your run. Get a random thunder strike far in the distance, there goes some more memory. Literally anything you can think of in the game adds memory. It was so precise, in fact, that if you're able to make it into Helmrock's room without the game crashing, which happens if a cannon saw you, the game didn't even have enough memory to load the next area. And it was just so barely able to run this area, in fact, that by simply breaking this one pod while climbing up this room, it cleared up a few kilobytes of memory. And then if you open up the door, it was just barely able to load the sequence to the next area and get you down to Hyrule. This was why the run was so difficult. After a lot of back and forth between me and Demon, this run happened.
Ah, Linkers. Nur die Zeit. Die Zeit, ey.
Is dead.
Alter.
Done. That's it. I skipped the 105. I'm a legend. That's it. It's over. Bam, the double body armor. You already know I was getting there on the perfect line.
And while this was an amazing run that we honestly thought would stand for a long time, both due to the difficulty of the run and the sheer amount of luck elements in it, a glitch hunter named Bowser's Sport had other plans, because he sought out to find a more consistent way to get through the barrier. Entering the 2020s, speedrunning looked much different than it did in the 2010s. Back in the day, glitch hunting mostly evolved around doing basic, seemingly random actions and hoping you'd get something. Maybe try and die while I do this at the same time. You get the idea.
Ja.
Soon, this process would get more and more sophisticated.
Das war echt
We actually
krass.
have a video on the channel called How Glitches Are Found that you can watch right here. These days, however, actual data scientists speedrun games and use their skills to aid in optimizations. And Bowser's Board wrote a script to see if a technique called
Die machen da echt eine Wissenschaft draus, ne? Da gibt's echt eine komplette Wissenschaft zu, ey.
bomb pushing can get you through the barrier. Throughout hours of trials and errors, it worked. To try and get past the first part of the barrier, the knockback part, we try to take out the Wind Waker on the same frame you take damage. Doing this, you can actually cancel out the effect. But for the invisible wall part, things get a lot trickier. Although it might not look like it, there's actually an incredibly small gap in the invisible wall. And when I say small, I mean it. We are literally talking about a pixel missing in the middle here. When we're talking about a gap this small, we need to be moving fast to even have a chance to get
Da ist ein einziger Pixel. Ein einziger, wo man durch die unsichtbare Wand kommt. Aha, okay.
through it. You see, when Link holds a bomb over his head, you can either throw the bomb or simply drop it with the R button. But if you press
Zelda Speedruns sind immer eine Wissenschaft und ein Glitch-Hunting
the
auch.
bomb is instantly just gonna let go and be dropped right above Link's head. And Wind Waker, just like most video games, does not like the idea of two objects trying to occupy the same space.
Was?
The bomb.
Ach, hier kommt das her. Ich dachte gerade, das wäre jetzt im Video.
Will quickly just push Link forward to get him out of the way where the bomb wants to go. Thankfully, for the very first frame that Link drops the bomb will push Link forward about double the normal walking speed that he can normally achieve. And this is just barely enough speed to clip through the barrier. But to say that this made a trick easy, however, would be an overstatement. The margin of error in this setup to get into the right position is ridiculously difficult. But if set up perfectly, with a perfect position and a frame-perfect bomb drop, the player can simply just pop right through the barrier. And as it's common in Wind Waker speedrunning, it doesn't matter how hard it is, as long as it's consistent. And the records just kept being pushed down further and further. And then, in February of 2022, Demon started a run.
Die Zeit. Unter einer Stunde. What?
Oh my god. Oh.
Junge.
Finally, he became the first person to finish the game in under an hour. And Demon is perhaps the greatest speedrunner in Wind Waker's history. This was his final run. We've seen this throughout this entire story. Whenever Demon is done, the community follows. And while that was true in the short term, 3 runners decided to push the game even further. And these runners pulled out all the stops. Using a new understanding of Super Swim in order to do manual Super Swim unbuffered, skipping the Phantom Ganon fight by using storage to unload parts of the room, and then finally, people began implementing a trick seen as a task-only one for years. And that, my friends, is Puppet Ganon Skip. Back in Narcissus and even Giano's days,
Puppet Ganon Skip.
It would be possible to skip the
Aha.
Puppet Ganon fight. It was a lengthy 3-phase brawl that takes place in an incredibly tall room, and there is just a loading zone to the final fight, exposed at all times, right at the top. And zombie hovering
Puppet
does
no
allow
luck
you
skip.
to essentially gain infinite height. The problem, unfortunately, arrives when it comes to actually touching the loading zone. Since Link
What?
is dead when zombie hovering, rather than continuing on to the final boss fight, even if he were to touch the loading zone, he would simply just die the second the cutscene was over. And the Tingle Tuner is no help in this situation either, since it only works in rooms with maps, which this one unfortunately doesn't have. Now, there are pots with fairies at the very top, and considering the fact that you can drop bombs while zombie hovering, it would theoretically be possible to break these pots with some bombs and pick up a fairy before going into the loading zone. However, for over a decade, this trick seemed just out of the reach. It had been tasked, but doing it in real time just wasn't realistic. There was no reason to throw away a 4-hour run in the last 10 minutes. However, this run wasn't 4 hours anymore. It wasn't a reset fest with memory corruption either. This was now a 1-hour run with consistent but difficult strats. And in March of 2020, Ian Miles would be the one to beat Demon.
Oh, oh my god, I got it, dude. Oh, oh, I'm shaking.
a lower Kirby coming in second when he got a time of 55 minutes and 15 seconds.
Ja, es wird einfach immer weniger.
And a Wabi with a time of 53 minutes and 8 seconds on September 16th, 2020. This run, particularly the second half, wasn't perfect. There was unfortunately a huge time loss on barrier skip and light arrows and more hover, but it's by far the best any percent run so far. This record stayed until just a couple of months ago, on October 1st, nearly 2 years after the last record was set, when Aloha Kirby finally won up to Wabi with a time of 52 minutes and 19 seconds.
Mais j'en ai rien à faire de faire un bon Ganondorf. Vous êtes où là? Vous êtes où? Vous êtes où? Vous êtes là! Let's go!
Kann man auch das Geld auf meinem Konto beschreiben. Das ist irgendwie traurig.
Impossible? Oh, ça dépend pour qui? Bon, ce serait quand même pas. Ce serait pas quand même.
And as of uploading this video, that's the entire history of Wind Waker. It's unclear where the game is going to go from here. Perhaps Aloha Kirby or some other challengers would add even more task strategies to try and push for the sub 50. Maybe the current record is the last one. Even so, the story of this game is undoubtedly one of the best tales in speedrunning history. I quickly just want to give a massive shout out to the Wind Waker community for the amazing documentation. This video literally wouldn't be possible without the help. And I also want to thank Summoning Salt for inspiring me and many others to actually look into the history of some of these old speedrun games. And please, don't forget to subscribe to the Lowest Percent YouTube channel, or check out my channel for more awesome speedrun content. This has been Linkus7 for Lowest Percent, signing off.
Wahnsinn, ehrlich. Krass, krass. Aber ja, ich kenne das auch, Saki. Ich kenne das auch. Ist doch immer der Weltrekord. Krass.